Hi, welcome to this week's Authors Love Readers podcast, where we delve into the stories behind the stories. We're asking authors questions, some of them fun, some of them serious, and from their answers, you're going to learn things you never knew about the people who write the stories you love. My name is Patricia McLinn. I'm your host and designated question asker. Now, let's start the show. Hi, everyone. This is a special edition of Authors Love Readers podcast. This week, you're going to get me, Patricia McLinn, talking about some things going on in author world. And first, an item that I think Elizabeth Margaret Danaher, my sleuth in my Caught Dead in Wyoming movies, might inform you about as a consumer affairs reporter. So think of me as speaking for Elizabeth. But first, I wanted to ask you all a favor. If you enjoy the podcast, please leave reviews for it wherever you listen, including iTunes is particularly beneficial. And I'm so bad at asking, but I will ask if you would consider being a supporter through Patreon. Or is it Patreon? We're going to have a poll on that sometime. I say Patreon because I'm used to Pat. Anyhow, you can donate as little as $1 a month. That's 25 cents per episode. So we would really appreciate that support. It goes to the production costs. We have costs hosting the podcast and also the editor. You don't want me doing the editing. Truly, you don't want me doing the editing. Hosting, recording, and editing. So those are the costs that money goes to help. Right now, I'm totally supporting the podcast. So hope you will love us enough to give us a little change each week. And that's at patreon.com, patreon.com/authorslovereaders. You can also find the information at the authorslovereaders.com website. Thank you so much. I did a blog some time ago that said bestseller lists that aren't, because a number of the lists are not, in fact, reflective of bestsellers. The New York Times, supposedly bestseller list, I'm doing air quotes, is sorted by them. There's only certain books that can be considered for that, and then they choose stores that report to them. And even then, they can do some juggling. So it is not based on sales. It is what they like to call a curated list. So there can be raw sales, and a book could have the most raw sales, and the people who put together the New York Times bestseller list feel that it does not warrant bestseller status, so it will not receive bestseller status from the New York Times. On the other side, these supposed bestseller lists on Amazon are weighted in a different way, not by individuals looking at the titles, but by their algorithms that favor books from Kindle Unlimited and also the Amazon imprints, where they are actually publishing books. But you'll see, if you look at the lists, if you go in and look at some bestseller lists, you will see how many of those titles are Kindle Unlimited titles. You know, it's their ballpark. They play by their rules, and that's the way it is. So I'm just saying, be aware that those are not true bestseller lists. On the other vendors, such as iBooks and Barnes & Noble, those lists are the best sellers on their sites. That makes sense. In my estimation, the most reflective of a bestseller is the USAToday bestseller list, because it does come from multiple sites. It's not perfect, not by any means, but it does cover a broader spectrum of sales sites, and it also lists books together, fiction, nonfiction. So when you're in the top 100 or 150 books, sold for that period of time, that is really something. And I'm very honored that I've had, I think it's 6, it might be 7 books that have made the USA Today bestseller list. Another point about bestseller lists that a lot of readers aren't aware of, because, why would you be? I wasn't from a lifetime of reading until I started into the writing side of it. They are a snapshot. They reward velocity. So a book that is selling a lot in a short amount of time will show up on a bestseller list. And yet I know from my own books, some that have been on the bestseller list are not making, or have not made, as much money overall, have not sold as many copies overall in their lifetime as other books that never came close to a bestseller list. So a bestseller list is, as I said, a snapshot rewarding velocity in a week, one particular week, and not looking at the overall life of the book. So if you're shopping by bestseller lists, I just say, keep that little tidbit in mind. The second thing that I wanted to talk to you about is something that's been being discussed in author world starting back in early May, and that is the trademarking of individual words, particularly in titles. Now, I want to make clear, trademark and copyright are very different. When I write a book and I put it in physical form, the ideas go from my head into the computer. There is copyright. I have copyright to that material at that moment. Then you register the copyright with the Copyright Office of the U.S. government or your own country, and that gives you additional protections. Trademark works somewhat the same way, that if you have been using something over and over and over, that kind of builds rights to it in that. They're shakier though. So then what you want to do, if you have one of those, is go to the United States Patent and Trademark Office, USPTO, and register that trademark. Well, what happened in May was that some authors became aware, and they told a lot of the rest of us, that one individual author had trademarked the individual word cocky for use in titles and series. And this is something new. All the time I've been in the publishing world, I've been told and have understood that you could not trademark titles at all, and that you could not trademark common individual words in broad usage. So, for example, Apple trademarked Apple only as it applies to computers, and nobody could have another computer company called Apple. But clearly, Apple isn't going after Granny Smith, and you can use apple of his eye, and you can use all these phrases. But this individual writer who trademarked cocky, which is a word that's been around for a really long time. I think it shows up in Chaucer, and it's not one that I would particularly use in a title or a series, but the precedent is horrible, because this person registered that trademark and then was sending cease and desist letters. In some instances, the authors who were using it, some of them had been using it before this author registered the trademark, because this individual was threatening legal action, backed away. But the author world in general did not back away. And so a challenge to the registration has been filed by a lawyer who is in the author world, and that is proceeding. This author who did the trademark then responded by trying to get an injunction against anybody continuing to use the words or the word in the way that she felt she'd trademarked it. That hearing was held June the 1st, and in that first court case, I'm trying to be delicate here. The person who trademarked, registered the trademark, her efforts to have injunctions was not upheld. So she lost the first round. There are ongoing rounds. I've seen some notices that says, "Oh, we won." Well, that's not true. That first round was in the favor of people who wanted broader use and to not have that registration be limited so that only she could use cocky in particular ways. In the interim, other people have been jumping in and trying to trademark, including one person who is registered for the trademark for the word big in series and titles. Well, authors are now watching this. Author World is watching this and sending in letters to the USPTO going, wait a minute, don't register this one. This is not a good idea. I don't know why they thought that cocky was a good idea. I want to make it clear that there are very legitimate reasons to register a trademark. For example, there are some authors who have registered a trademark of a series name, the entire series name, not a single word in it, that they made up. That is very particular to their books. Other authors have trademarked their writing name because that is particular to their books, and not trademarking it, letting other people use it, could cause confusion. So there are very legitimate reasons that help you as the reader. In this instance, which by the way is called, in general, is called Cockygate, one word for a hashtag. So if you want to go out and read about it, Google Cockygate, Cockygate. In this case, the person who registered the individual word cocky, gave as the reason that her readers could not distinguish her books from other books with the same word in the title. I like to think that the readers are more alert than that, that if they see, a book with the word heart in it, they don't think it's all by one author. I know you guys don't. But that was her reasoning. So it's been very interesting, and I've written a number of Facebook posts about that. If you're interested, trying to keep the emotion out of it. Sometimes that gets difficult in both on both sides. So trying to keep things factual and of interest to everybody. On the other hand, if you're not interested, that's fine too. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, I've had a number of readers ask me why Patricia McLinn books are not in Kindle Unlimited. And I have a number of reasons. It's not just whim. I know a lot of you use Amazon, and some of you use Kindle Unlimited. The first reason that I don't and won't have Patricia McLinn books in Kindle Unlimited is that Amazon requires exclusivity. That means that if the books are in Kindle Unlimited, they cannot be anywhere else. Now, there are a few big name authors that Amazon exempts from this. I'm not one of them. So if my books were to be in Kindle Unlimited, they could not be in iBooks, Nook, Kobo, Google Play, Tolino, anywhere else. Couldn't be anywhere else. And I am not willing to do that for two reasons. I'm not willing to do that because of you readers who like those places and want to buy your books in other spots. And I'm also not willing to do it for me. I am not willing to have one company, one entity have total control over my works and my livelihood. I just independent sort here. And that feeling is becoming even stronger as I'm seeing and experiencing issues with unreliability, especially technically and in customer support from Amazon. So it just seems like that is not a good idea to put all my eggs in a basket where I'm seeing fraying edges. But I gotta say, it also has a lot to do with my my independent personality. Also, the Kindle Unlimited, what I call the ecosystem, is really not designed for somebody who writes the way I write. It rewards people who write very quickly, very, very quickly. And I'm not a slowpoke, but I have more complex stories. And so I'm not releasing them boom, 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 boom. This ecosystem is also, because of this rewarding people who release very quickly, leads to scammers who find ways to release way faster than an individual legitimate author could or does. Now, some legitimate authors will save up their books and release a bunch of them, boom, 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 that they've all written. But some of these scammers are using many methods that are really complex. And one is called book stuffing, if you want to Google that. And they take the same stories. Often they have gotten those stories from ghostwriters, and many times they have horribly underpaid these ghostwriters. And they take these multiple stories from multiple ghostwriters and put it all in one book. And that benefits them because they get paid per page view. And Amazon rewards that. And it rewards the people who've had the highest page views, the authors, supposed authors. These people aren't really authors. Every month with bonuses. And these scammers are cleaning up on the bonuses, and they are dominating the Amazon popularity and bestseller lists and closing out. So other books, non-scam books, have a very difficult time showing up on those lists. Now, just recently, Amazon has kicked off some of these scammers. Oh, and what I wanted to say is once they put they put 16 books or 16 story titles in a book, then what they do is rotate them. So book one starts with story one and has that title, but then it has all these other books in it so that they'll pick up more page views. Book two has story two as the lead one. Story one has gone to the bottom. It's like rotation in volleyball. And they just keep rotating these. So they have 16 titles with the same 16 stories in a different order, and they get page views on each one of them. And they have tricky ways to get you to go from the beginning to the end, so they get lots of page views. They have all sorts of tricks. They're formatting things so that, like, the table of contents, instead of being on a page or just a little over a page, is taking up 7 or 8 pages, because then they get more page views, and then they get paid more, and then they push everybody else out of the bestseller list. So I'm not a fan, and I have more reasons. I have a blog on this if you want to read about them. One of the other things that I really don't like is that Kindle Unlimited has changed the rules unilaterally and without warning at least twice. And I look at that situation and I think, I don't want to play in that playground. Thank you very much. So what I was saying is all of the vendors have the right to change the terms of service. And they could. They have not tended to, certainly to the degree that Kindle Unlimited has. So, as I said, I have a couple other reasons, and I'm happy to talk to people about it. Those of you who love Kindle Unlimited because you're on a limited budget, I would highly recommend libraries. And I know some of you don't get out very much to go to the libraries, but there is something called Overdrive. One word that a lot of the library systems are part of, and you can get ebooks through that. And my books are in Overdrive. Big believer here in in libraries. My very first job was working as a page in the Helen M. Plum Memorial Library in Lombard, Illinois. So I'm a big fan of libraries, and if you have a limited budget, I highly recommend that. For those of you whose budget isn't quite as limited, we authors really appreciate the sales, because of course this is what lets us continue to do what we've been doing to make a living writing, which allows us to devote the maximum amount of time to writing. You can imagine if we're doing something else to earn a living, the writing has to step back. So I sort of encapsulated that argument and that reason for not being in Kindle Unlimited as my dog Callie needs treats, lots and lots of treats. So I'd be interested if you have other reactions. Oh, I will also mention this is not Kindle Unlimited, but I've also been asked a lot about why my books that are available in pre-order are available the shortest amount of time in Kindle. And that is because of Amazon's rules about how they run pre-order. The other vendors allow us to adjust the pre-order date based on life, things that happen. Right now I'm working toward Cold Open's release. That's the book 7 in Caught Dead in Wyoming series, and it is scheduled in early August. Well, when I scheduled that, I was not expecting my dog to have surgery and a 6-week confined convalescence. So and weekly vet visits. And if I had the option, I would probably push the book back a couple weeks to adjust. But I can't because it's on pre-order on Amazon. And if I do not hit the date, I will be in Amazon pre-order jail for a year. So if I miss it, you guys who want Amazon pre-orders won't have any for a year. So that's why I tend to limit the time they're on pre-order in Amazon, to try to cut down the possibility of things going wrong that would make me be late. But Callie didn't listen this time. She fooled me, and there we go. The next issue in author world that I'm going to talk to you about really makes me irate. All right, they all make me irate, but and this one really gets under my skin. There are people out there, I've talked about the scammers on Kindle Unlimited previously. Well, there are people who sell courses on how to become one of those scammers, including at least one course that said, oh, gee, you can make 6 figures a year on Kindle Unlimited. All you have to do is first pay me $2,500. I just, it says, it's just outright. It says, you don't have to write the books. I mean, why would you bother writing the books, right? Hey, you can make 6 figures, and all you have to do is, put together a scam. I am just so irate about this, that they are scamming so many people. They are scamming aspiring authors, and this just is a burr under my saddle, as the Wyoming folks would say, because aspiring writers are dreaming of being able to get their stories out to you, the readers, of connecting with you, of having somebody read what they wrote and get it. Oh, that is such a magnificent feeling. And so they come with this dream, And these scammers say, okay, you can do it, you can do it the easy, slick way and make all this money. And who are they luring in? Now, some of the people they're luring in are those who don't want to write books. They just want to make, they want to get rich quick. And those people make carpetbaggers look bad. They are not part of our community. They are not part of wanting to read or write. They are just looking, they've spotted this way. They think they can make a lot of money. And in fact, the people who are making the most money are probably those who are selling these courses trying to scam people to try to scam. So I don't feel sorry for those who are looking at it as a get-rich-quick scheme. I do feel for the aspiring writers, especially those who do it out of ignorance. So if there are any aspiring writers out there listening, please do not fall for that ploy. It is horrible. And I have a blog on this. It's called Fork Over 2.5K Learn to Scam via Kindle Unlimited. We'll put a link in the show notes and read the details. I also talk about some scams that have been around since my early days in publishing, through traditional publishing. This is not new. There have been a lot of people who have tried to make money off of aspiring writers' dreams. It is despicable. They are also scamming you, the readers, because they are saying you can make money without offering readers a good story and a satisfying reading experience. To them, that's unimportant. Doesn't matter. Who cares? You can make gobs of money without doing that. And that is so disrespectful. And it lures some of your money unknowingly, unsuspectingly, to these people with that scamming approach. And they create these fly-by-night pseudonyms by the bucketful to grab your money and run. They're not looking to create a career. They're not looking to have a relationship with readers. Yes, you can tell it really bugs me. And they go into they put the books into Kindle Unlimited, and then Amazon's algorithms favor Kindle Unlimited books, so they go up to the top of the bestseller lists and to the top of the popularity list and to the top of the searches. Have you ever, it used to be that Amazon was so good as a search resource, and now I do searches and I look at the results and think, what the heck does it have to do with what I just searched? Well, some of this is the result of these scammers. So they do also, these scammers do also scam other legitimate authors because they take up spots in the visibility. So you don't see my books as much. You don't see, it's all about me, right? You don't see the books of legitimate authors as much because they are blocked out by these scammers first, and then to a lesser extent by the legitimate Kindle Unlimited authors who are favored by Amazon. So I don't know if any of that made sense to you. I hope it did. As a reader, before I was writing, I would not have been particularly interested in any of this, but I am delighted and surprised that a number of you have said that you are. So I'm offering this information out there. I'm also telling you there's more detail in the links in the show notes. I don't want to get too carried away with all of this, but now and then if something comes up, I will do these shorter special editions of Authors Love Readers. And then we'll get back to our interviews with the wonderful other authors. I think that's it for this week. Just to repeat what I said at the beginning, we would so appreciate reviews and anywhere that you listen to us. And if you would consider donating $1 a week is the minimum at Patreon. So you can find out all about that at authorslovereaders.com. Thank you so much for being here and listening to me. I hope you have a wonderful week of very happy reading. See you next week with another author interview on Authors Love Readers podcast. That's the show for this week. Hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for joining Authors Love Readers podcast. Remember, you can always find out more about our guest authors in the show notes, and you can find out more about me at www.patriciamclinn.com. You can also send in questions to be asked of future authors at podcast@authorslovereaders.com. Until next week, wishing you lots of happy reading. Bye. If you like this podcast, we hope you'll consider becoming a supporter through our Patreon page. With a small monthly donation as little as $1 a month, you can help with the hosting and editing costs that make the show possible. To thank our Patreon supporters, we offer them special bonuses. Find out more at authorslovereaders.com or at patreon.com/authorslovereaders. That's PATREON. We also hope you'll subscribe to this podcast and leave us a review wherever you listen to us. Both of those help more folks find the podcast. Of course, the very best way for other folks to find the podcast is for you to tell them about it. So we sure hope you will.